Well, I guess I've kind of been talking about this particular weed situation for a number of years now. It first showed up like in 2017 in Benson County, both Waterville and Palmer Emery was found an isolated incident. We've kind of been following it and working with growers and stuff on increasing identification and status and just getting a plan put together once it inundates your acres. And if you listen to the crop consultant panel earlier, those guys were talking about some issues with some of the other big weeds like olive, cooking, dry beans and things like that. We have limited herbicides that we can use. So even regular pigweeds can cover the problem and sometimes we'll kind of get a little bit of overview on that, and over time we'll send some samples in to NDSU to be treated and check for resistance, and I'll get some updates on that. Kind of what's happening in the area. Of course, this is a seedling. Maybe you know what it is, maybe you don't, but notice the long linear shape of leaves. It's kind of got a shiny appearance. This is a baby water hemp, and you know they talk about size. It matters. The smaller they are, the better control, because they can be a real soft customer. And then in comparison, here is your Palmer amaranth. Notice the cotyledons are more shaped like ovate, almost like an egg shape. A few years ago, we were finding some of this here and there. I'm not aware of any new infestations that happened in 2023 in the state of North Dakota, but that's not standard business. But both of them are a real tough customer to get up ahead of if you get them blowing up on your farm. And you definitely do have some of that. Here's a close-up of a male and a female water hemp. The female is on the left side, and it almost has kind of a real thin seed structures versus the male, and that's the one that spreads the pollen, so we get cross-pollination. And not only does Palmer amaranth have cross-pollination, but water hemp does too, and that assures us plenty of genetic diversity in a real quick hurry. It's not self-pollinating and keeping true like a regular pigweed. That would be a self-pollinating one, and also hollow amaranth self-pollinating. It's just an overview of some pictures we took on the trip down to Kansas here Nebraska a few years ago. Just some identifying characteristics of this is Palmer, and one of the key characteristics on a larger plant is this long leaf stem. It's longer than the leaf itself. Occasionally you'll have a watermark on the leaf, but in many cases, not so much of that. You can have stems the size of pop cans, and you can just see how prolific of a seed producer it can be in the right environment. The last couple of years, we've been seeing more water hemp infestations than we have Palmer, so that's a good thing. But they're both probably equally tough to control and yield robbers. And one key characteristic of the female water or Palmer amaranth, if you grab these in the leaf axils, there will be a little spine in there, and it will pretty near draw blood on this. The males won't have that, but the seed heads themselves, they also have. If you were to rub your hand up and down them, you would feel the males are real soft, but the female seed structures give you more of a pulpiness here. When you grab it, you're gonna know it. You know, I just got a couple of buddies. They just showed up here. They just come strolling in late. 15 was not huge capacity in here, but they come right up front here just to send their love and their wishes. Scott Knoke, Benson County. Well, appreciate you boys coming there. Parker, your head's getting red. Here's one that showed up a couple of years ago over near Leeds, and we got Joe Whiteley, our lead scientist down with NDSU. He came on out, and we were like, "Oh God, here we go." We got a whole field of Palmer amaranth. I mean, we were convinced, and it wasn't until we sent the sample off to do a DNA test, the results came back hollow amaranth, and nobody ever put it in a book that Powell has watermarks on the leaf, so it was a kind of a scary deal. The guy went out there and spent a bunch of money trying to control, which he probably needed to anyway, but it was in a cornfield. He knocked it deader than, well, it wasn't in here. So it can fade you out a little bit, but all will take on their own characteristics with different populations. Here's just a couple of Powell amarants. You can see how prolific a seed production they can be also. And there again, like I mentioned earlier, they're not always easy to control and they really proliferate very high seed production too. And I think over time, we'll see more of a buildup in the soils with this pigweed as well. Here, I got this picture from a grower, and I think he's even in the audience a few years ago. He sent me this picture. God, I got this weird looking pigweed out in my field. I just got one, and it had not gone to seed yet, and it was determined that it was Powell. Powell. One of the characteristics on the Powell, it may have some little hairs up near the growing point, but it tricks a lot of people, and until you get your eye to them, then it'll make you think you don't know what you're doing at times. And even weed scientists will sit and battle back and forth a little bit trying to identify it, but that DNA test doesn't lie. But anyway, I suggest just get it out of your field. You don't need even one plant to want to seed, so exclusion is paramount, keeping this from building up. This was from biotypes, from the cross-pollinating stuff. You know, just like if you look at poaching in your fields, you will see numerous plants. You'll see some with red stems, some dark green, some lime green. It's just diversity within the plant population. And the most of these here, these are water hemp, and these are the females. That's your seed producers. And as you see here, we've also got some that aren't pink, and so there's just a lot of variation within it. Here's another one that looks kind of pretty, violet, but that's about all part of the prettiness goes. Anyway, so this is what we're running across. Right here is a male. That's going to shed the pollen and fertilize some of these finer seeded ones. So that's what the male looks like. And if you touch it during pollination season, you'll just be covered with pollen. It almost just shakes off there. But the males do not make seeds. So if you're in a roving situation and you can identify in the field what's a female and what's a male, I don't know that it's not as important to get rid of your males, but you better get rid of the females if you want to keep it not from going to seed and the dust in your field. But this kind of stuff is dropping up more and more on farms across the area. This was probably one of the first introductions for myself in Benson County, which is southern Benson. The dragon grew sunflowers, and this part of the field was too wet to plant. So he never had this weed on his farm. His agronomist called me, and we went out and looked at it. Sure enough, it was water. But you can see how substantially big it gets. And this particular one is a male. There again, you can see these kind of bigger seed structures, whereas the females, and they're not always red like this, but they're real fine. But this was just one plant here, and here's a stump on that thing. This was growing right locally here. Fortunately, we went out there and we didn't find it in any other pond. It was just this one slough where it was. So we went in there and, you know, oh, yeah, I'll come up with pole weeds. I thought the better of it when I saw how many there were. We filled up a trailer. We came out with a Roundup tote, you know, with them 250 gallon totes. We were just going to put it all in there. We stuck 3-4 plants in there, and that thing was full. So we heaped up this trailer. And the good thing is we got to it before it went to seed. We didn't find any seed there. So we eradicated it from that field, didn't allow it to go to seed. And like I said, we put it on a trailer. So putting water hemp or these on a trailer and bouncing around down the field probably isn't the best idea. I didn't know a guy. I pointed out to him that there was this water hemp. He's in this room, but if he behaves himself, I won't single him out, but he comes out there. I said, "You get that plant on the edge of your cornfield?" Yep. You're gonna kill me. Got it in the back of it. I said, "Well, what are you doing, man? You're gonna spread seed all over." I don't think it was quite ripe yet, so I didn't want to see, but, they just keep popping up here and there. A few years ago, there was some contaminated millet seed, and there was a commonality for that year. We were finding water there. It came in with contaminated seed, and I would guess if you were driving by that at 50 miles an hour down the gravel, you might notice that there. Oh God, what's going on out there? But it's a water hemp. I believe it's a male. But what about this one right here? You think you'd see that one driving by at 50 or 60? Probably not at all. So we need boots on the ground or four-wheelers to be out there looking. And if you just have a couple of bites, just get them out of there so you don't end up fighting them down the road and increasing your herbicide cost. And plus, you're not on your yield. This one, lo and behold, there's the old rail again. That's been kind of a common thing in this county. This was on the edge of the soybean field a couple of years ago. I drove by it and I looked over and anyway, I went up there and it was just full of thousands and thousands of plants. We called the door. He had a couple of young men that were starting the farm. Came out there and we started pulling weeds. We were like, what the hell are you gonna do with all of these weeds? There was some seed production, but a lot of it had not gone to seed yet. So we were able to stymie some of that. But this was on soybeans, and we couldn't hardly find any of them out in the field, but just along the field edge, and just exploded. So anyway, they tried to burn and bag and get rid of as much as they could. The following year, they grew wheat there, and this is what they used in 21. They came on with a sharpen to start with, and then Husky Complete in season. It was a super dry year, so I don't think we had very good germination. But once we did get a shot on it, then we got some more germination of the water that started coming up. And they did a burn down with a dicamba, a 2,4-D, just to try to minimize any more, any escapes or thing in the fall. And I came back there the next year and it was soybeans, and I could have swore it was just going to be thicker than the hair on a dog, but it wasn't. Things aligned quite nicely that year. In that field, you can still find it out there. Where you find it is in the low spots, drainages and things like that, but it's manageable. If this would have gone on, and these boys would have run the combine through that field, with those scattered plants, they'd have it spread all over their farm, especially if it was a water hemp and they still had plenty more fields to go to. And actually, this particular field, this was the next field on their combiner's list, coming harvest. And so what they did is they delayed it and tried to remove as much as they physically could. And then they combined it last. And then the combine was semi-contaminated. They had to, do what they could to clean it up the best they could to try to get the most seed out of it. And obviously, when you got something like this, you better, good idea, make mental notes and even write down GPS coordinates. Where was this a problem in my field? Can I get a handle on it? You need to monitor it for years down the road. The longevity of the seed is 6-7 years easy. Now this is what happened this year. We get calls from growers. They say, I think I got Pigweeds. It's weird. It's only in my sloughs. I looked at a lot of different sloughs, and what I think has happened, we got all those migratory birds coming through here. One of them went into the pond and did its business and left a few seeds. So they were pulling these, but a lot of these folks didn't contact myself in a few instances until after it had gone to seed. There was no stopping this baby from going to seed. This was even after a frost. But what they did was they tried to carefully bag them the best they could. And then they used torches and I don't know what. They tried to kill everything. So I'm guessing these weeds will probably be in the same field to some extent next year. And that's what somebody asked. So what's the best? What do I do when it's in my field? How do I get rid of it? I think bagging it, identifying it prior to going to seed, and then bagging it, getting it out of it, and getting it into an incinerator or something, or bury it way deep, don't ever dig it up. You can get rid of it. Now, as of late, there's a testing lab out in Fargo. It's called the National Ag Genotyping Center, and they're currently testing pigweed species for herbicide resistance. And all they ask for with GPS coordinates, just kind of track it. And by the way, none of this is let out in the public eye where it's at. That Johnny's got it all over here. But so they take it down there and then they look for genetic markers, make it herbicide resistant in kochia and pigweeds. The kochia one isn't quite here yet, but possibly this spring you'll have a marker that can identify that. What this can do for you, and I know there's some guys here that I submitted samples for, and I'm gonna give a report as to what resistance came up. But if you got something, you want to have it tested, it's like a 3-week turnaround time, and all I need is 2 leaves off the plant. Not a composite, just off one plant, then we can test it. And this is what happened, a grower called me over in Trumbull County. I think Lindy was tied up or something, they said, I'm gonna go out and meet one of your guys and get a sample, and I did that, and it came back with 2 different groups of herbicides, group 2 and group 14. The group 2s are ALS, like Rapture and Pursuit, and the group 14 PPO inhibitors. This is just kind of coming on something's a little newer. Not all populations have resistance to this, but Cobra, Sharpen, and Flexstar that used to work real good, they're not going to work so well anymore. And if any of these leaves are on the farm are just assume that they're Roundup resistant, glyphosate resistant. This is done in Benson County. We had some group 2 ALS resistance samples within our county of absolute pursuit. There was Roundup resistance, which is really of no surprise. It's more group 14 PPO inhibitors with these burned down products that they're not effective on anymore. And across the United States, down south, they don't have a product that works in soybean and corn anymore. That's 100% effective. So that's a pretty scary scenario going down the road when there's no bullets left. This is the states that or the counties that were identified with water hemp group 14 resistance. Here's one that has a 3-way resistance. I apologize, the picture isn't very good, but you can see scattered plants all over out here, group 2, 9, and 14. Didn't hardly touch them in a soybean field. Coverage challenge, we always talk about this. You guys have seen maps of weeds like this. I know you have exposure. So the gallonage that folks were talking about earlier, I'm using the amount of gallons that they want you to. Don't cut rates and do everything you can to get these babies when they're small, because once they get a little bigger on it, control really goes down in a hurry. I mentioned early weed control is crucial. In a germinating seedling, there's only one growing point. By the time you get a 6-inch pigweed, the pigweed isn't water hemp. You've got 30 different growing points. If you come on with like a Liberty or something like that, it's a contact herbicide. If you don't hit every one of those growing points, they'll go back by the fall. They'll have seed heads that are about the size of pool cues. It just irritates them, and wow, do they go nuts. Here's a grower last year. His neighbor actually was on site the first year we went out and noticed we had pigweeds. They came out and helped pull plants and stuff. And he developed a very good eye, and now he's keeping tabs on the neighborhood and sharing with the neighbors when they have some. And just hey, you better watch out for this. And the big thing is to work together. Nothing to hide. You put it there yourself. So if we work together, side-by-side farms and eradicating this, it's going to go a long way to keeping your populations down. Here's another one. I call it revenge spray. Come back with a load of Liberty. And you thought it's going to take care of this problem. You won't have anything go to seed. Well, first of all, these plants are 2.5, 3 feet tall. Yeah, it took the tops. Well, made me feel good, but all this regrowth under here, not even regrowth, only the coverage needed to control the population. So I don't really think this is very effective at all. And this stuff didn't end up going to seed, and it's going to be a challenge for years to come. Here's one here in Nebraska. It was a contact herbicide. They sprayed it down. The one thing, it's way too big to be trying to kill it. I think you're going to. It looks like it nailed a pretty good job, huh? Okay, here's inspecting it closer. And this is the same plant outside here that's initiating growth out of those leaf axils, and it'll make seed by fall without a doubt. It is a survivor, and its only goal or main goal is to make another generation of seed. Here's just another one, and this was kind of typical what was being found. There again, the ground level location, I think ducks may have moved in there. We never did find big, huge infestations with scattered plants like this. So I talked about burning and heat. Well, I'll get to that. That can help, and I'll show you how it might do. This was a few years ago, and this was the initial year we found it in, maybe the second year. And some growers came out and we actually did some field loading of this. This was a 300-acre soybean field. But just for this slide, there's a slew. All this, we were finding all this, not only water hemp, but palmer. It's on these field edges around the water. And there again, possibly it may have gotten there by ducks. I'm not sure. This individual farm had a custom machine on from down south 3 years prior. Maybe it got started then. But from the time you have one plant in your field to full infestation, if you don't do anything about it, is 3 years. With one of these plants creating 500,000 to 1 million seeds, just one plant alone, it's no wonder it can spread like that. But we can see there was a waterway here, and there was just a string of these pigweeds right there. So any drainage that's important. We found some right up here in the field entrance and the approach. That's one of the key spots. And then along tree edges, soil banks, anything that will impede the stop of seed from going across the prairie in the winter. That stuff will just roll like forks. And it looks like forks too. Here's some in Benson County again. The guy was trying to control it. He sprayed all beds of ornament. I shelled some of that out, got a bunch of seed in my hand. So it wasn't done timely. And I killed it. There was still seed production. I'm willing to bet that seed is viable. And then here was just another female on a water hemp plant right here. It didn't even, that product they used just didn't work. Initially, we were keeping track. How did they get here? There was some sunflower meal that was being fed across, and it was found a livestock operation. They blew up there. Millet seed, I talked about that, contaminated. Horse equipment, bringing it in, whether it's even a four-wheeler with some mud on it, or a pickup, or your tennis shoes, the soil things better. And then rail, there's more instances on the rail for sure. We were out Logan with that one field and the soybeans I was talking about, and we were getting ready to leave the field, and we should probably check our grips on our shoes, and I took mine off, and these pigweed seeds were, well, they were in my shoes. I had to drug it off home and taking off my shoes. Who knows, I might have got started wherever I went to. A seed fell out. That's how easy it spread. This is Palmer Emerald distribution. I was told we don't have any new confirmed spots. These are all spots that have had Palmer Emerald in them and identified with one of those DNA tests. So that's good that it's not increasing, but we're not done with it. It'll still be here for some time, just like all the other regions. Here's the distribution of water, much more covered in your state than your Palmer Emerald at this time. This is what I mean. You can see one or two plants out in your field. These are these pigweed species. If you can get them out of it before going to seed, you're that far away. Whether you gotta knock down some crop, or get on this crop. The scenario is if not controlled, we're running the combine field. Then the next field you go to, you have a contamination situation. Probably it will have to come in. Plus this field here too, it can go to seed and just be something you got to deal with down the road. That was that one plant along the track. I mean, this thing is crispy as can be. Plenty of seed in there, and it's viable. Here's some Palmer. This was a couple years ago. They're in along the railroad tracks. This is the field over eastern Benson County, down away from the rest area. It's like, just totally polluted with water all along the headlands. You see these strips here. This is all water. This year I went there and he obviously changed herbicide. Maybe he went with the dicamba, but he was really getting after it. You couldn't hardly find him up there. So he did get a handle on it, and I'm sure there's still a lot of seed there for future infestations, because this particular field, it was right before it was harvested, and there's a god of seed out there. And you think his neighbors are a little worked up, maybe? So working together is key. There's just another one, more. This was in Ramsey County. There's the female ones, those red ones, reddish ones, they're not always red. And the males are a little bit easier to identify. The both Palmer and Washington will never have any hair. So that's one of the things. You look at your regular pigweed, it's going to be so hairy, you can't hardly see the stem. It has a short little bushy head, where these have long extended seed heads. They're just going to look like pigweeds on steroids. There's something to be said about a good picture. That means use the sunlight to your advantage to identify characteristics on that and help make a determination via photo. Because we can send pictures through our cell phones, obviously up on a computer, blow them up and look for some of these. But if you take a picture of a plant in the shade, or you have a hard time taking good pictures, well, just think about it a little bit. Take a picture where the sun's on it, it's bright, and take a few, and that way getting it identified from afar is a lot easier task. But otherwise, we've got plenty of guys that are versing what they look like, whether it's an agronomist, county agent, or even some neighbors are real good at it. Identifying it, first of all, is an absolute must. This was the first year we found it in Benson County, no longer in Waterham. I just happened to go by it and, holy shit, what is that? I walked over there and it was explored. I mean, we weren't supposed to have it until 2021. We were hearing a little bit of chirp about dicamba resistance, not only in Waterham, but also in Closure now. That's been one of our silver bullets right now. And what happens when we lose that? So we need to diversify our rotations, our crops, keep mixing out the herbicides with different modes of action. The same old is not going to work. And what this slide does here, this is the half rate of blast. This is the amount that's survival, 35%. So if you show a full rate, you get much better control. It obviously is not good enough control when you still got 30% or 15-20% going to seed yet. They got some real issues. This is down south of Indiana, Illinois, Mississippi, and Nebraska. We're not there yet, but it's coming. That's what it did, was the plant will be able to take off and regrow. Here's another one that we're getting on quite a bit with the living glufosinate. Same thing as the other slide. Half rates don't cut it. You need full just to stand a chance. There again, these are probably different populations than we have here, but all it takes is one hay bale coming from Kansas and Nebraska or wherever. When we're having a drought up here, seeds move down the highway. There's just, typical herbicide resistant, cooked it right to the ground, fried it. Here's a survivor. In time, it'll come back and probably make seed. It's not there. Just make it look sick. Might make you feel good. You monitor that and then see if you're probably gonna find that it made seed. In 2022, I sent some seed down that I collected across Benson County, and it was grown up in the greenhouse and it was treated to see what worked. Husky worked well, but there was still some that it didn't kill. Dicamba and glufosinate. More survived and died. I do stuff that should be like a 3-foot tall plant, and you don't get any control with 3-foot plants. I moved up. But typically, those products are still working pretty good as long as you get them small. And I think the Liberty, if you want them at 2 inches, 2 inches, another inch or two might be the difference between getting control and not getting control. Okay, this is the one. What should I do? Everybody. Got it. It's in my field. What should I do? Well, there again, I talked about this. If you can notice that prior to going to seed, if it escapes your herbicide application, you're breathing, you're posting merging, you can come and hand pull it, bag it, be careful not to shake it, and get it all over. And some guys, I watched them in Nebraska, they would take scissors and cut off one branch at a time to minimize the shatter, and then put it into a big bucket. And then they would take it and get it into an incinerator area and do it. Anyway, so I talked to Joe Eichley, our weed scientist, at NDSU. So what can we get burned? So he found some data and shared this with me. It's nearly 5 minutes of the heat at 400 degrees to get 92% of that seed done for it. I don't know about you, but standing there in one spot with a torch for 5 minutes, that's a long time to stand there with that torch. God, it must have been here 15 minutes. When you're doing that, probably time isn't gonna fly, you got more, you're gonna know, well, there's another one, there's another one. So it's a tool, I don't know that it's the answer, but what else do we have at that point? Other than bagging, removing, and then mapping those areas within the field, keep an eye on them down the road. This was a field down south. This was quite a few years ago. These pigweeds got to their well before here. This is back in 2010. They had a field where they weren't having the best of luck with some of the herbicides. So they went out there and they did this hand labor. They spent 110 hours one year pulling plants. The following year, and I'm sure they didn't just only pull plants. They used their other herbicides and stuff, and then they spent 2 hours. And then the third year, for 2012, we were out there for 2 hours. So you can gain ground on it, but it's a painful process and very labor intensive. Where are we going to get the labor to do something? I don't know about you, but we grew up going to work. Some of this, I got some at home. I'm wondering, what the hell are you going to do for work? You seem to be entitled. Having to go out and pick weeds all day, that can happen a couple of miles. Unfortunately, they're gonna have to wake up, right? Cost of control. If you got a problematic field, you can expect probably double to three times as much herbicide cost.